Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I hope my voice clear. Okay. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Norianti, a member of RIG Logistic Modeling. I will be responsible for hosting this presentation today, and I'm glad to welcome all of you to our webinar on logistics and transportation. Okay, let us open our session today by reciting Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Ameen. Right. Alhamdulillah, it is honored to have our presenter today. She is Associate Professor TS Dr. S. Sharifah Radia Sharif. Okay, a little bit about Dr. Sharifah Radia. Currently, she is an Associate Professor in FSKM, UITM, and Head of the Postgraduate Studies, Malaysian Institute of Transport, MITRAN. She earned her PhD in Operation Research from the University of Malaya in 2012. Okay. She has served on numerous advisory committees and has various working experience not only in academic but also in corporate position. She has published more than 30 papers in research journals and participated in more than 20 international conferences. Okay, before we get started, just little housekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box. I will address them during the Q&A session. And you may also directly ask the question at the end of today's presentation. Okay, now without further ado, please welcome Dr. S. Sharifah Radia for her presentation entitled Supply Chain Modeling and Its Approaches.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chairman, Dr. Noyantis. Okay, first of all, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon to everyone who
Waalaikumsalam.
okay, first thank you to everyone for joining the session. I know the topic is not that attractive, but you show your interest by joining us this afternoon. Okay, so thank you very much for the team RIG Logistic Modeling for giving me the opportunity to talk and share about my passion, okay, which is supply chain modeling and its approaches. Okay, I have quite um, a long presentation prepared for you, so please bear with me, okay? But don't worry because if the time allocated to me is only 40 minutes, 40 minutes betul tak? Yanti? Ke 30 minutes?
Yes. More than that pun okay, tak ada masalah. No problem. 45
Oh,
minutes and
okay. So allocated to me 45 minutes. Okay, then I will finish it within 45 minutes. Okay,
thank
so
you, Doctor.
let me share my. Okay, nampak tak tu ada 169 slide. But don't worry, sebenarnya saya tunjuk contoh aja, so it will be very fast. Okay, so the title that I chose for today's presentation is Supply Chain Modeling and Its Approaches. Okay, outline of my presentation. Okay, first we'll start with definition for some of you who don't really understand what do we mean by supply chain. Okay, and then followed by supply chain models. Okay, and then the solution approaches to solve the problem. Okay, so what is a supply chain? Okay, based on some researcher back there, a supply chain consists of all stages involved directly or indirectly in fulfilling a customer request. Okay, this is an example of the supply chain flow for a detergent. Okay, so it started with the request from the customer, and then it goes back to the retailer, distribution center, the manufacturer, in which the manufacturer itself need to have several suppliers before they can come up with the finished product. Okay, so supply chain management, okay, so M stands for management, concerned with managing the entire process from the raw material supply, manufacturing, packaging, and distribution to the end customer. Okay, the definition okay, ini daripada nota kat kelas kan. Okay, jadi the definition of SVM used in this note, okay, we can write it as the alignment of upstream and downstream capabilities of supply chain partner to deliver superior value to the end customer at less, or actually at least cost to the supply chain as a whole. Okay, here we can see that in supply chain management, we need to have the collaboration, okay, the network with the partners in the supply chain in order to fulfill the customer's requests. Okay, so when we talk about the upstream and downstream, just now, what we mean is when we refer to upstream, meaning that the tier or the few levels of suppliers. Okay, if we consider our organization to be in the middle, okay, the downstream is the customer side. So for when we are talking about the supply chain, for those in the supply side, purchasing and supply are in the upstream or the inbound logistic. Okay, while for the physical distribution to the customer are the outbound logistic. Okay, so this is the total network of the supply chain management. Okay, more abstract characterization of a supply chain or network. You can see that, okay, if we focus on the carrier or lorry driver or the transporter, it can be something like this: from the supplier to the manufacturer to the distributor to the retailer and then to the customer, and it can go backward from the customer to the retailer, distributor, manufacturer, and supplier. That's how abstract the supply chain network is. Okay, if we want to look at the supply chain management in terms of its operation, okay, we can look at a cycle-based process view. Okay, where from the customer, we started with the customer on the cycle, okay, to the retailer, where it involved the replenishment cycle, and together with the distributor, and then we go to the manufacturing cycle, to the procurement cycle, towards the supplier. So it's all about the network between the customer to the supplier and from the supplier to the customer. Okay, more definition about the supply chain management, because if you remember, our RIG is RIG logistic modeling. So where does logistic fit into the supply chain management? Okay, we will see it in a while. Okay, let me go again on the definition for more understanding of what supply chain is. It's more on the process of planning, implementing, and controlling the efficient, effective flow and storage of goods, services, and related information from the point of origin to the point of consumption for the purpose of conforming to customer requirement. Okay, the primary purpose, even why are we talking about supply chain, is for the its existence is mainly to satisfy the customer needs in the process of generating profit for the organization. Okay, so here we are looking at the definition for logistic. Okay, because previously we were talking about supply chain and we want to know how logistic fit into the supply chain. Okay, so logistic itself is when the organization strategically managing the procurement, movement, and storage of materials, parts and finished product inventory, and the related information flow through the organization, through its marketing channel in such a way that the current and future profitability are maximized through the cost-effective order fulfillment. Okay, so the logistic is the task of managing material flow together with the information as the key part of the overall supply chain management. In a way, we can say that logistic is the key processes within the supply chain management itself. So again, some of us might think that when we are talking about logistic, we are talking about the movement of the material. Remember, if the material move by itself from the supplier to the customer, it doesn't mean anything unless we have the information come together with it. Okay, so logistic is the task of providing on not only the material but it must come together with the information. Okay, so main logistic activities. Okay, here I want to focus on the main logistic activities and the decision that we usually make, especially the logistic manager or logistic practitioner need to make while they are doing the process. Okay, the first one. Okay, I will not go through all the process. Okay, I will choose an interesting one only. Okay, so first, one of it is to cooperate with marketing, the marketing department within the organization in order to set customer service levels. If you recall that the supply chain process itself um, exists whenever there is a request from the customer. So meaning that it will be initiated based on the customer needs. When the customer needs something, then only the supply chain process will start. Okay, so of course within the organization, okay, they will start with looking at what is the requirement in order to fulfill the customer. So usually the organization will set the customer service level, and it will not really be done by supply chain department themselves, but they will need to work with the other department. Okay, usually they will need to work with the marketing department in order to set the customer service level. In the process of setting the customer service level, there will be a process in trying to fulfilling that the number that have been set. Okay, for example, in order to ensure that the customer service level is at 99%, for example, only 1% of the order is not being fulfilled, then we need to look at the process of fulfilling the order. So we call it order fulfillment. At the same time, there is another very important process which is called demand forecasting. So in order to set or to fulfill the customers service level or customer satisfaction, we need to forecast their need. Okay, so in within the process, we have to forecast what is the demand going to be like. Okay, the next main activity or decision that those in the supply chain network or logistics need to make is a facility location decision. For example, okay, let's say the organization need to store their product in a warehouse. Okay, and then let's say we are in Klang Valley, but we have customers who are in the east coast of Peninsula. Okay, should we come up or should we engage another warehouse in the east coast or not? Okay, will it be profitable? Will it be able to fulfill our customers' need or not? Okay, so those in the supply chain network or management need to make decision on whether there is a need for the facility to be located at certain places, or we can really manage it from the headquarters without really need to have an additional warehouse. Okay, another activity is something like transportation activity. Okay, when we want to fulfill the customer's requirement, how do we fulfill that? Can we just use the cheapest possible mode of transport, for example, putting the material onto the vessel, okay, because it is cheaper, but we need to consider whether it will get there on time for the customer to use the product or not. Okay, so that is when those in the supply chain management need to come up with the best way to select the transportation mode, and the list goes on. Okay, I only explained three activities. Okay, meaning that there are a lot of processes within the supply chain itself that can be looked at in order to improve the whole decision. Okay, so for the many processes, we can break down the supply chain management problem into three categories. The first one is what we call strategy or design issues. How to structure the whole supply chain network. So usually for the strategy and design issue, the scope will be taking years, or what we call long-term forecasting or long-term forecasting planning. Okay, so among the decision or the process that involve in the strategy or design issues are on deciding location and capacity of production or the storage facility, the transportation links and modes, the information technology infrastructure, those falls under the strategy or design issue. And the second level is what we call planning issues. In planning issues is when we need to determine the policies for the operation that will drive the short-term decision making, or we call short-term forecast. Okay, usually that planning issue will take months, or the decision itself need to be taken within the month. Okay, so which market to be supplied by which locations? If you have several warehouses, so which warehouse should supply the dedicated customer and so on. So what is the inventory policy like? How much inventory you want to keep? Okay, so if you have probability of not having enough stock to fulfill the customer requirement, okay, so what is your policy in handling that kind of problem? So that is under planning issues. So the third one, okay, ini bukanlah nak kata the lower level, but this is the most what we call uh, uh, um, renyah lah kan. Okay, the most complicated, not really complicated, I mean renyah lah. Okay, lah operational issues. Okay, it's when we want to implement the operating policies in the best possible manner. So the scope sometimes within the shift itself, days or weeks, and sometimes hours. Okay, for example, to allocate the individual orders to certain department within the production line. Okay, and then set the date that an order need to be filled. Or you want to generate the pick list for the warehouse. When the order comes in, you want to assign which order picker to fulfill a certain type of order, or whether you want the process of order picking within the warehouse to be on a single order, or you combine all the orders at one time before you do the picking. Okay, something like that. Or when you want to set delivery schedules for fulfillment to the customer. Delivery schedule in most organization, it will need to be done every day in the morning or sometime at night. Okay, so why are we, this supply chain management is important and of interest of many? I can say this is the current main thing, both in if the students are looking for jobs, okay, it is advisable to go into the supply chain line, because this is the in thing now. Okay, because there are a lot of good things come out of being able to manage your supply chain. For the organization, if they are having a very good supply chain management, there are a lot of benefit that they can get. Okay, the first one is the initial benefit of the supply chain management will accrue to the customer, which is the initiator of the supply chain. The customer will earn the reduction in inventory. For example, if they order the product and the order comes at the right time, right quantity, right place, okay, and then they can go ahead and make use of the item that they got and they buy, okay, without really need for an additional cost of needing to pay for the storage cost and so on. Okay, when the customer actually happy with the performance of the supplier, then they will always come back and buy from the supplier with the good supply chain management. And of course, it will mean good profit to the organization. So it is a win-win situation for both the customer and the supplier. Okay, so this is the effects of good supply chain management. Okay, when we have fewer orders initially, while the customer draws down excess inventory, small and more frequent order, okay, and so on. Okay, ini yang kalau silap-silap ya, does not have a good SEM tadi, good SEM. Ini kalau not a good SEM, if we don't really have lot of orders coming in because the customer doesn't really like us, okay, so meaning that you might end up with a lot of inventories, okay, because it didn't doesn't go out, okay, so it will mean additional cost to the organization, and also in the end there will be no profit to the organization. Okay, so there are a lot of challenges or impediments to the process of having good supply chain. Okay, accounting, in the functional, in the reactionary practices. Okay, and then if you recall on the tactical and the strategic role for logistics just now, then you want to come up with a good inventory policy. But you also need to look at the operational strategy at the warehouse. So which are which? Okay. So the inventory planning, is it in the tactical or is it in the strategic role? So those two actually are not clear which role, which is the two actually belong to which role. Okay, because those are not really clear. Okay, another challenges faced by the organization is the unclear mission. Okay, let me just give you an idea about the unclear mission. Okay, for example, in the organization, okay, we have sales department and also the supply chain department. Okay, sales department, when they come up with their forecast, they usually forecast high because they want to ensure that they can sell a lot for the company. Okay, when they are forecasting a lot of volume, okay, that will mean that supply chain need to order that many volume. However, the supply chain department has their own constraint. For example, if they bring in too many, they might end up with higher cost for the storage and also higher manpower to manage the stock in the warehouse. Okay, so when the two cannot really uh, um, when the two departments cannot come up with the same goal or the same mission, okay, that will be the challenge to the supply chain department especially, and also to the whole organization. So usually they need to talk over or discuss which whether we need to bring in that much, okay, in order to ensure the profit for the organization, or we can, the supply chain manager need to come up with a plan in order to support what the sales department has. Okay, and that is when you need the collaboration between the department in order to come up with a very clear mission. Okay, now we come to the second part of my presentation, supply chain and logistic model. So in this section, I want to introduce, I think that is your interest for today. Okay, to introduce the sample of supply chain model, they are based on the 3 levels of decision hierarchy. Okay, the 3 level of decision hierarchy is the same as the problem breakdown just now. Okay, so in my class, instead of talking about the problem breakdown, we are talking about the 3 levels of decision. Okay, and whenever we need to come up with the model, okay, there are several are the constraints in order to achieve the objective of the model, and what variables that will be used in order to help with the decision. Okay, so here is another list of role of logistic and supply chain, sama je macam tadi. Okay, cuma dia if you Google, okay, for when we talk about logistic and supply chain, these are the general uh, process in the supply chain: transportation, storage, packaging, material handling, inventory control, and so on. Okay, the main scope of supply chain and logistic modeling, when we consider the model, when we want to model, meaning that we want to look at the actual process and put that into a simple model. Okay, nature of modeling is, okay, when we want to consider the broad spectrum of supply chain tadi, no model actually can capture all aspect of the process. Because there are a lot of processes that we are not sure whether we should cater all. If we want to cater all, maybe we forever cannot really come up with the model. Okay, so that is one of the disadvantage of coming up with the model. However, to compromise with the dilemma between the model complexity and the reality, we will come up with a model builder that in which we should define the scope of our model in such a way it will be reflective to the key real world dimension. We might not be able to cater everything, but we just look at the key real world dimension. Okay, so levels of decision hierarchy. Um, okay, so, sebab semalam rasanya macam dah alih. Dah ubah. Jangan. Okay, tak apa. Okay, level of decision hierarchy. Although there is no systematic way of defining the scope of firm-specific supply chain problem, okay, we can follow this guideline. Okay, 3 level of decision hierarchy. Tadi itu competitive strategy, tactical plan, and operational routines. Okay, so for the competitive strategy, okay, I think I have mentioned just now, okay, will include location allocation decision, facility location tadi tu, demand planning, distribution channel planning, strategic alliances. Strategic alliances meaning that if you want to manufacture certain product, okay, and then that product need to you need to get the raw material for the product from various suppliers, right? Okay, from various suppliers. So in the first place, you need to identify the supplier, okay, and then draw some contract with them, and then build an alliance with them in order to ensure that you will always get the supply from them. Okay, so usually sometimes there are a lot of supplier. You might need to do make decision on how to choose or select the best supplier, and then build a contract with them, okay, in order to ensure that there will be a sustainability of the whole process of you manufacturing the product, and in order to fulfill the customer requirement. Okay, information technology IT selection. Okay, within the organization, sometimes you will have several technology that you want to embed into your processes. So which one will you in the end choose it to be within your organization? So that kind of IT selection also need to be can be model. Okay, can be model. Okay, so for the tactical plans, okay, this is on the inventory control, production, distribution coordination, material handling, layout design, layout within the warehouse, for example, is part of the tactical plan. We can model that. Okay, and last one on the operational routines, for example, baker routine, scheduling, workforce scheduling, record keeping, and packaging are in the operational routine. Okay, but like what I mentioned just now, the distinction between the levels are not always clear because sometimes if you do a decision on the layout of the warehouse, for example, of course it will affect the schedule, the work schedule, and so on. Okay, and then components of supply chain model. Okay, the first one is the drivers. Okay, drivers ni adalah specific goals. For example, here I highlight on if there is no specific goals, mean it will be very difficult to come up with the model. So in order to ensure that whenever you do the model, it is a very specific and you need to have what we call the drivers. Okay, the drivers can be for the supply chain drivers. This will be the objective of your model. Okay, the supply chain drivers are the objective of your model. Okay, this can be initiated from these four categories. The first one is customer service initiative. Okay, which is based on product availability, meaning that you want to ensure in your model, you want to ensure the product is available at all time in order to fulfill the customer requirement. And then response time, you want to model such a way that the response time is very quick in order to fulfill the customer requirement. Okay, the second drive is in terms of monetary value, asset utilization. You want to ensure that the machines that you have all are fully utilized, and whatever investment on buying the new machine uh, will be able to return some money back to the organization. And also you are looking at the cost behavior. For example, if you hire many people, how will the cost look like? Okay, should you ensure that all the workers are efficient so you don't have to um, pay you don't really have to hire many people, but hire only the efficient people, but pay high to them. Okay, and what is the drive or the objective of your model in terms of monetary value? The third drive is the information or knowledge transaction, real-time communication. Okay, this is more on when you want to buy the new technology or you want to use the new platform. Okay, what is the objective or what is the drive to ensure that the knowledge being delivered to the customer or to the other supplier or to your network in a fast manner and in accurate way. Okay, so all technology transfers, you want to ensure that all your partners within your network are also having the same technology. Okay, the last drive is the risk element. For example, risk element more on a risk of quality failure. Okay, you want to ensure that when you model your process, you will reduce the percentage of damage and so on. Risk of information failure maknanya information tu yang get to the customer are not accurate, for example. That is information failure. Another example of information failure is you already ensure that the information come together with the product. When the material being delivered to the customer, you want to ensure that the information also get to the customer, the real-time information. But due to some problem or whatever come in the way, the information did not get to the customer. That will be the information failure. Okay, just now we were talking at the drive. That is the objective of the model. Okay, but in order to achieve the objective, okay, there must be constraint. Okay, so supply chain constraint will represent the restriction or limitation placed on the a range of decision alternative that firm can choose. For example, okay, when we want to, sorry, kena minum, nak cakap laju-laju sangat kan. Okay, for example, you want to build a storage facility to ensure that it can fulfill the customer requirement. Okay, so you build one in the East Coast because your customer are mainly in the East Coast, so you build the store there. Okay, okay, the warehouse there. Okay, then you were thinking that by building the or having a warehouse there, you can fulfill the customer requirement at the other side. However, there is a limitation to the storage capacity, for example. Maybe not only the capacity, maybe you don't even get a warehouse that is accessible to the customer, for example. Okay, so meaning that even though you already make a decision that can best fulfill the objective of your model just now, but there is in real world there are a lot of limitation that will come in the way in order to not in order that will hinder you from achieving your objective. So one of the concerns are the capacity, okay, service compliance, okay, so, the extent of the demand. Sometimes the demand fluctuate very much. Okay, for example, okay, within the week, the demand increased by more than 5 times. So you might end up with stock out. Okay, so when stock out, what will happen? So you might want to look at the inventory policy in order to cater for that kind of problem. Okay, so we have the objective, we have the identify the constraint. Okay, so what do we do? So in your model, you need to identify what we call decision variable, the variable that is able for to be controlled by you. Okay, kalau dalam statistik tu dia independent variable lah. So independent variable yang you can control and you can decide on. Okay, so that is what we call decision variable. If we are talking about facility location problem, the location at which you want to locate your facility, you can decide. Okay, but not really can decide. You can put that as the alternative, okay, as the alternative, and then when you do the algorithm or do the process, then it will tell you that which location is the best to fulfill the objective, given that you also control the constraint just now. You can smoothen the effect of the constraint just now. So similarly for the allocation, okay, ini contoh ya, allocation. Okay, for example, which customer can be allocated to certain warehouse or certain facility, for example. So that is the decision that your model will make in order to decide which customer will go to which facility. Okay, network structure. Okay, network structure meaning that if we can decide on instead of having a lot of warehouse, you're only having one distribution center. So that is your choice. Okay, or the planner punya choice network structure tu nak buat macam mana. Okay, so apa yang bawah tu tak nampak. Okay, tak apa, kita go to the next one. More decision variable, number of stages. Okay, so usually echelon ni number of stages in the inventory planning. Okay, so when you want to do the planning, you can also decide on how many stage of planning you want to use. Okay, so we sequence the volume, inventory level, size of workforce, extent of outsourcing. All these are the example of the decision variable. Okay, next is I want to give you a brief idea on when we have the objective, constraint, and also the decision variable, how do we approach or solve the problem? We get the models being structured. Okay, there are only three ways in approach the model. Okay, and the first one ada tiga je. The use of appropriate modeling technique will facilitate a comparison of the functioning and cost service effectiveness of the current versus proposed logistic or supply chain network. Okay, by looking at the three approach. The first one is what we call optimization models. Okay, this optimization model is the precise mathematical procedures that are guaranteed to find the best or optimal solution. Okay, optimization model will give you the best answer at all time. Okay, ni tadi tu kita skip lah yang ni. Okay, the second approach is by using simulation model. Okay, as you, I think one of the problem in doing a study or doing a supply chain model is in order to get the data. Okay, let's say we want to do inventory, we want to look at the inventory policy. Okay, we are, let's say we are in academic, we don't really do or have data on product demand from the customer. We don't really have that. So we need to go to the industry and get the data, right? Okay, even we go to the industry sometimes, okay, usually we have friends, good friend, best friend, here and there, right? Okay, but they are also bound to confidentiality of the organization. They can only give us a limited number of data. So when that happens, we can go to what we call simulation models. So simulation model ni process of designing a model of a real system without really changing anything in the real system. So we usually go and get a set of data that can represent the whole operation. Okay, and then we mimic that in our model and we do simulation in order to get more data or enough data for the analysis. Okay, the last one is heuristic model. Heuristic model are able to accommodate more problem. Okay, however, they don't really provide the optimum solution. Okay, of course, the best approach is to use the optimization technique. Okay, but simulation and heuristic are the alternative in order to give you a near optimal solution. Near optimal solution is good enough rather than no solution at all, right? Okay, so when I did my PhD, I also do not know what heuristic is. Kalau you search ataupun Google Translate, bahasa Melayunya dia jadi heuristic, C tu tukar jadi K je ya. The actual one macam antara faham dengan tak je. Okay, it's more like population and sample in population and sample approach in statistic. Okay, because population in supply chain process, we are talking about the solution. Okay, potential solutions. All the potential solutions are the population. Okay, so when we have a lot of solutions, how to get the best solution? So instead of looking at the whole population of solution, we just take a sample out of that. Okay, and then we use certain algorithm in order to extract the best solution from the sample. Yeah? Ambil sampel ni, ambil sampel ni, ambil sampel ni, and then you will get the best solution, the best or near optimal solution. That's what heuristic is all about. Okay, so of course, when we talk about supply chain modeling, in my context, we are talking about the mathematical model. Okay, so meaning that most of the supply chain model, to me, it need to be transformed into some mathematical model so that we can calculate. Kalau tak boleh calculate, nanti tak tahu whether it shows any performance or not. That is context here. Okay, so what we can say that most of the supply chain model we should be informed of quantitative method. Okay, because that is one of the most proper ways to optimize the cost and the capital expenditure. Okay, so now berapa minit lagi, Dr. Yanti? Okay, give me about 10 more minutes, boleh?
Sure, Doctor. Sure. Can.
Okay, yang ni we go marathon ya. Marathon saya nak tunjukkan. I think just now we were looking at the process. Now I want to show you the work that I have done with my student. Okay, dia ada several level tadi tu, ada 3. The first strategic, okay, kemudian tactical and also the operational. And also I want to show you what is the latest interest in supply chain model. So yang ini saya kena laju yang ini. Dia banyak sikit ya. The first one is supply sample application 1. Okay, this is from my PhD study, locating public healthcare facility. So objective dia, we want to investigate the health service accessibility problem. Okay, when we want to look at the health service accessibility problem, okay, the objective is we want to ensure that when we provide or build the facility, it will be able to be assessed by the patient ataupun the population within that area. So nak maximize societal impact, ya, nak maximize societal impact. Okay, that's why we call it public healthcare facility. We want to locate the facility, okay, so that when we are talking about a public, to maximize the societal benefit, ya, maximize societal benefit. Kalau kita nak locate private healthcare facility, okay, maybe the objective is to maximize profit for the organization. Macam tu. Okay, so and then we also examine the effect of the constraints on the location decision, whether the number of facilities that we have now, okay, is enough to cater for the whole population, because the objective of having the healthcare facility is to ensure that everyone health is for all. Everyone can get medicine when they need it. Okay, and then next objective is to propose the alternative solution to constrain location allocation problem. Okay, because in our public healthcare facility, we can see there are congestion there, not only on the road, but also at the facility. So what if we have that constraint? So what are the alternative solutions? Should we build more hospital, for example, or should we build a bigger hospital? So macam mana ya? Okay, and then the last one is to formulate the location decision model for public healthcare facility in Malaysia. So literature review pun masukkan juga. Saya laju sikit ni ya. Okay, so for objective 1, we're doing what we call locational analysis. Okay, of course, we started with the basic model, which is location allocation model. Okay, ada 2 yang ini untuk facility. Satu kita panggil P median, satu lagi MCLP. P median ni objektif dia ialah to minimize number of facility being open in order to cater for the whole population. Itu P median. Okay, subject to apa? Okay, subject to maybe not enough money and so on. Okay, not enough budget from the okay, P median minimal number. Salah. P median ialah to minimize average travel distance by the patients to get to the facility, to healthcare facility. Okay, when we are sick, of course, we want to go to the nearest facility kan. So itu objektif satu, sorry. So P median ni ialah to minimize average travel distance by the patient, P median. However, that is subject to the constraint might be no facility available, or some of the population are located very far from the facility. So itu constraint ya. Okay, next ialah MCLP. MCLP ini ialah when we want to maximize number of facility, maximize number of population being covered by the facility, given the number of facility is fixed at certain value. For example, let's say in Shah Alam, we have a few hospitals, right, private and public. Okay, and then the service of each of the hospital are fixed to certain. And then we want, but when we want to look at the hospital, we want to ensure that maximum number of population can get access to the hospital, provided with the limited number of hospital available. Okay, why that is of concern? Because in Malaysia, I don't think it's in Malaysia only. When we are talking about public healthcare facility governed by the government, they also have their own budget. So maybe the budget is only to build a certain number of hospitals. But when they build, they must make sure that the location and the facility that we build can cover the maximum number of population. Okay, so ni dia punya tu, saya laju sikit. Bukan laju sikit, laju banyak. Okay, so this is the solution approach, optimization model, simulation model, and heuristic. Okay, when I did my PhD, I used heuristic, which is genetic algorithm. So this is just show you the genetic algorithm for this study. Is when we use the binary representation. One is when we want to open the facility. Okay, this one means there are four facilities and there are four facilities available. Okay, so how many we want to open? Okay, in this particular example, we want to open 2, but if we open 2, there are since we have five potential location, where do we locate that? Okay, so in this particular example, we want to open 2, and the first one is at location 1, and the second one is at location, actually salah example satu ya, at location 4 for example. Okay, so but in my PhD, we come up with a new chromosome or solution where we combine the number of facility and location for it to be located, and also which patient or which population will need to be assigned to the facility first. Okay, so saya go laju yang ini. These are the analysis that we did. We also project the volume, select the possible new policy facility. Next, this is the work of my student. We also locate the public schools. Okay, because at that time, this is sometime in 2014. Okay, where parents are having problem in getting their children placed in the secondary schools. Okay, maknanya kalau you dekat this primary school, you cannot go to any pergi sekolah menengah yang jauh-jauh ataupun of your choice, because being the Jabatan Pendidikan has said that if you are within this area, you can only go to secondary school within this area. You cannot really go across the district and so on. Okay, so that is the motivation at that time. So we come up with the study. Okay, case study. Okay, that is the study on public school. Okay, the third example is on manufacturing. We are modeling the assembly layout plan. Okay, in the automobile company. Okay, ni datanya kita ambil daripada company APMB. Kita ambil data. Okay, and then what we did, we look at the machines that they have there. Okay, this is the plan layout, and then we want to look at if the layout is like that with the number of worker, limited number of worker, can we produce or minimize the delay time? Ya, dekat sini kita nak minimize the delay time. Okay, so for this example, since like I said, we have limited time, limited data being given to us, so we simulate, and also we want to change a little bit on the process, but we cannot really change the process at the assembly line because they will not allow us. So what we do, once we get the data enough to mimic the actual process, for any changes that we propose for the organization, we do the simulation. Okay, so ini kita laju sikit yang ini. Okay, so next example in optimizing manpower. Okay, in this particular example ini, yang tadi tu company kereta, yang ini company motosikal pula. Okay, so what we did, we identify the variables, okay, the decision variable, number of workers, okay, number of processes and workstation, and then we look at the completion time. Okay, and then, okay, yang ini pun kita simulate juga because we want to simulate the number of workers needed in order to complete the process within the accepted time by the customer. Okay, next is simple application on the operation. We look at the warehouse space utilization. Okay, yang ini sebenarnya kita, ini pendek aja. Sebenarnya kita nak maximize the warehouse space utilization, ya, warehouse space utilization. So we were getting the number from the number from a logistic company in Padang Jawa. Okay, actually we end up instead of looking at the warehouse space, we are looking at the inventory policy that match into the storage space available, the available warehouse space. Okay, next sample is on marine logistic. Okay, here we evaluate the cost efficient queue priorities for berth allocation at the port. Okay, this one also we use a simulation. Like I said, we are changing the process of allocating the vessel to the berth. Okay, berth allocation tu lah. So kita macam nak ubah sikit dia punya proses tu. So bila kita nak ubah, okay, we cannot really change at the port. So what we do the simulation. Okay, so yang ini dia lain sikit. We are making use of the method that we learn in operation research, okay, for making decision. So but it's also on marine. Okay, so here we use multi-criteria decision making in order to make selection on who should be in the operation, in the port operation, ya. Port operation ni nak pilih port operators lah. Okay, but we make use of the Monte Carlo simulation in order to calculate the performance score for the candidate. Okay lah, ini dah nak last, ya. Okay, but the current interest now is on supply chain 4.0. Okay, tadi kita cakap pasal supply chain. If you look at my study, mainly my study are only looking at the process. Okay, but I think you heard about supply chain 4.0 or nickname untuk supply chain 4.0 is digital supply chain, ya. When we talk about digital supply chain, meaning that we are looking at automating the whole process. Maknanya inventory planning tadi tu pun, what is the inventory policy, whether is how many you want to order and so on. So it can be done by a system, right? Software kadang dah ada, you akan kata macam tu, software dah ada, why we bother to go and look at the process again and propose a new policy and so on. Okay, yes, I agree to that. Okay, however, in order to support algorithm within the supply chain 4.0, you need to know the basic. Okay, we cannot go on and making use of the software without really knowing how to get the value. Okay, so that's why the interest is still in looking at the process, come up with the new algorithm in order to support supply chain 4.0. And supply chain 4.0 not only talking about the automation, it also talks about the power of data analytic, okay, in order to ensure that we are making a very wise decision in whatever processes that we are involved in. Okay, so for supply chain 4.0, tracking and labeling of the product plays a big part. Okay, tracking and labeling lah. Maknanya tadi kan the movement of product from the supplier to the customer need to be followed by the information. Okay, that's why we need to do the tracking. So on to support that, I buat satu study lagi, modeling impact of control point using the simulation juga. Okay, sama juga untuk chicken produce. So we were looking at since yang ini kena nak fulfill halal logistik tu, so kita tengok kalau sebelum ni I was just looking at the processes at the warehouse. When I come to Mitrans, they introduced to me halal supply chain macam tu. Rasa macam pelik. Selama hari ni tak halal ke apa ke. But I did learn. And then from the process itself, we actually need to look at which point we need to control that to ensure that we are still comply to the halal requirement. Okay, so on that note, we model on checking the halal control point. Then we put that into our track entry system to ensure that when we do the tracking, okay, we are keeping the halalness in the system. So we do the simulation, and then we want to see if we adopt the halal element, halal compliance element at each of the control point, will it affect the final output or not? Okay, the idea is for the manufacturer out there, should they transform or get the halal certification or not? Will they lose if they comply to the halal practice? Okay, so from this study, I just want to say that if originally without controlling at halal tu kan, okay, mungkin boleh dapat 100%. Okay, but actually not really. Ada dalam 98% juga. But when we input on halal control point, okay, the output reduced to 94%. But it's only 4% decrease in the total process. The total 4% loss in the total process. So more than half of the large global companies are expected by 2023 to use the IoT, Internet of Things, Artificial Intelligence, and Bioanalytics in the supply chain operation. But remember, the movement towards digitizing the supply chain process will always be overseen by us human. Okay, I think that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Sharifah, for the presentation. Very interesting research you have there. Okay, so with that, we will go ahead and take some time for questions. Is there any question from the audience? Okay, if we don't have a question, I have a question for you. So very interesting about the digital supply chain just now, you said, but for me, for the end customer, if I would like to become one of the retailer, for example, I would like, normally I don't like to have a stock with me. So how to overcome the problem by looking at the supply chain? We would like to have zero stock, but we would like to have a smooth supply chain to our customer. What do you think about that?
Okay, actually, in the supply chain process, we have several terms that we are looking at. Okay, what you are referring to maybe can be solved by what we call vendor management VMI, VMI vendor. Ya ke, terlupa pula ya. Tapi macam vendor management lah. So maksudnya the supplier actually will control the inventory at the retailer side and also the customer. Okay, so that's why some of the supplier or organization, they want, if they have acquire certain new technology to keep their information, they will ensure that all their supply chain partner also are at par with their technology. So when they are, so that, and then on top of all the connect partners must be at par in terms of the technology. Okay, they will also build an sort of alliance saying that you have to agree that we are controlling your inventory from our side. So whatever movement in the retailer side can be seen by the supplier tadi. So bila dia nampak dari sini, let's say a retailer try to order more than what they actually need, okay, they will control that. Okay, patutnya dekat retailer ada 100 pieces saja per week. And suddenly retailer feel like, oh, next week I nak buat promotion. So my demand might be 150, so they nak order 150. But supplier can always say that we don't really see the pattern, so kita hantar kat you 100 saja. But kalau ada perubahan extra demand, okay, the supplier tadi dia kena respons cepatlah untuk tambah the actual increase in demand from the retailer.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
so
you, Doctor.
that is part of the benefit of a good supply chain management. Okay, in which it will benefit not only the end customer but also the retailer and everyone within the network.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. One more questions. In terms of software. So what are the current software that helps in solving supply chain problems?
Within the industry ataupun for us academician.
Both for academician and also industry.
Okay, in the industry, I left industry for so long, as far as I remember. Okay, they are still, I think they are still using what we call SAP. Okay, SAP, in the SAP tu, contoh, there are several functions. One is on the inventory management, for example. So boleh search lah untuk SAP for the industry. Okay, for us academician, in terms of modeling, we can use, like myself, we use MATLAB, and I still use Excel untuk buat modeling lah. Tapi sebenarnya kita on top of MATLAB, you can use R to model the equation and so on. So tapi certain contohnya macam simulation tadi, we can use Arena for the simulation by putting in the process into the software. I think most of the software can support the supply chain modeling problem.
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Sharifah. Okay, it's like we don't have any question anymore.
Assalamualaikum.
Oh yeah, okay.
Salam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah, saya Wan Maharni from UiTM Insurance Kelantan. So I would like to ask one question to Prof. So looking at the logistic process, we also have reverse logistic process. And in terms of looking on the best possible approach for the reverse logistic process, whether the company should go for the refurbish or remanufacturing or recycle the product. So can these three approaches, okay, can be used as the same process of the normal supply chain process. Okay, so that's my question. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wan Mahani. Okay, actually, river logistic is one of the thing in the national logistic agenda. Okay, tetapi the last note from MOT, for now they haven't really started to look at it closely. So kita academician, we can always start the ball rolling, ball rolling untuk look tengok detail-detail dekat river logistic ni. Okay, one thing about supply chain punya management process ni, it depends on the nature of the business. Okay, depends on the nature of the business. So dia macam berbeza sikit dengan statistik. So kalau statistik, you need to have a lot of data, then kita tengok dia punya distribution kan. Tapi kalau supply chain ni, dia lebih kepada case study lah. So you need to go and look at the process within a certain organization, then only we can solve their problems specifically. Maknanya bila kita buat model tu, dia lebih spesifik kepada certain industry. For example, okay, right now, okay, actually for logistic, I started my career in the reverse logistic. Saya masuk National Panasonic masa tu, duduk dekat warehouse, duduk kutip barang-barang reverse ni, nak pulangkan kepada customer. Ya. Okay, the study that I'm doing now with my student is a reverse logistic process at an automobile company. Okay, when it is automobile company, they do have reverse logistic in tech process. However, when they were looking at the process very closely, the impact is not. Kita ada nak buat macam proposal. Contohnya, bila kita handle reverse logistic tu, it must be part of the forward logistic process. Maknanya bila kita hantar barang to the customer, then there is some damaged product at the customer, that the same lorry will bring it back to the supplier. Maknanya proses lah kan. Okay, tapi kalau buat macam tu, lori tu bila dia balik dia akan kosong sebab damaged product tu volume dia kadang-kadang kecil, kadang-kadang besar. Nature of the reverse logistic ni, demand dia ataupun volume dia is uncertain. We cannot even predict berapa banyak volume yang akan damage. So jadi bila kita nak embed tu dekat dalam forward logistic, macam company tu tak okey, tapi certain company mungkin okey sebab dia punya damage produk tu sentiasa ada contohnya. So kalau kita embed dekat dalam forward logistic tu boleh. So what I'm referring to is, okay, when we talk about reverse logistic, whether you want to refurbish ke remanufacture, depends on the product, depend on the nature of the industry. Lagi banyaklah dia punya tu.
It's a case by case basis
Yes,
Prof.
Yes,
Meaning that it's not like a standard solution yang can be applied to all lah. Okay, we are looking into details of the company, apa sebenar dari segi nature business dia, nature product dia, something like that, right?
Yes. So when we were looking, let's say for reverse logistic, we were looking at the process. So kalau kita tengok proses, apa solution method kita, approach kita. So kalau kita proses, kita tak boleh kacau proses dia, then we should resolve for simulation. Kita nak simulate balik proses dia, tengok sama ada we can put some added value to the process ataupun tidak. So itu simulation lah. Tapi kalau data kita banyak, contohnya tiap-tiap bulan ada damage, tiap-tiap bulan ada damage, so mungkin kita kena tengok balik macam mana nak handle volume tu. Maybe we go for optimization. So optimization sebab dia exact solution kan. So kita go for exact solution lah.
Alright. Okay, thank you Prof.
Okay, thank you for the question. Saya seronok je nak jawab.
Okay, we have one more from Muhammad Azri. Dia minta doktor untuk share slide, boleh ke?
Siapa ni? Nak share slide yang 100 lebih tu? Betul ni. Betul ni nak baca. Okey, boleh. Tak ada masalah.
Okay.
Okay, nanti
Alright.
saya
Nak tanya juga, nak tanya.
Okay.
Is there any
tanya je.
inclusion of blockchain technology in the digital supply chain?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. Memang blockchain actually, when we are talking about blockchain is actually to cater for supply chain process. So blockchain tu sebenarnya nak supply chain lah tu. Tapi dia dah buat dalam bentuk, dah namakan lain kan. Kan dunia ini evolve. So mula-mula kita we are being introduced to logistic, kemudian ada supply chain. Now dah cakap pasal blockchain, meaning that is a supply chain being embedded with all the technology. Dah jadi blockchain pula.
Sebab ada yang sebut juga pasal hash graph. Kata hash graph ni lagi performance dia lagi cepat lah compared to blockchain technology. Kan?
Tak, itu untuk orang-orang muda lah pergi belajar yang itu, yang dah tua season ni.
Kita dah tua kan?
Tengok basic aja.
Dah tua je dah tua dah, tak larat belajar.
Allahu Akbar.
Tapi kan
share,
Prof,
boleh share?
tapi kan Prof, kalau talking about the blockchain kan Prof, we do not know how far the blockchain technology ni is actually has been adopted by the industry lah sebenarnya dekat Malaysia ni. At what level dah sekarang ni actually?
Okay. Actually, there are a lot of attempts. Okay, here we are dekat Mitra ni pun kan a lot of attempts that we are doing to look at the status of blockchain ni. Tapi kan blockchain ni they need to gather almost all supply chain partners within the country. Dalam country je, baru nak dalam country je. Tapi bila nak gatherkan a lot of people kan, maknanya dia macam nak control the tracking the movement of the product together with the information. So maknanya sharing of information tu meluas sangat kan. So ramailah yang takut lah sebenarnya. And then some of legal problem as well of people making use of confidential data macam tu. So I cannot really say what is the status now, but for kami dekat sini kita tak tengok lagi dah blockchain tu, sebab several attempt that we met with some analysts out there, consultant pun ada nak cuba buat. Yang tu the hardest part is to get even katakan kita pilih ayam aja kan, chicken produce saja, nak dapatkan partners, all the partners within the ayam punya network, supply of ayam punya network tu pun payah, belum lagi benda-benda lain. Macam itulah. So saya tak boleh nak jawab apa statusnya.
Okay, thank you Prof.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Right, it looks like we have covered all the questions. Now, please give cooperation by opening your camera for photo session. Mohon untuk buka kamera ya masing-masing. Okay. One, two. All right. Okay. Right, don't forget to fill in your attendance. E-cert will be given to you through your registered email. And we actually have a coming conference in logistic modeling. We will distribute the informations in soon in our website and also in our the conference is International Joint Conference in Logistics and Transportation. Date would be 16 September 2022. Hopefully, there is
Kemudian 5 sampai 6 Oktober.
yeah, betul. 5 hingga 6 Oktober conference date, betul. 5 to 6 October 22 conference and submit yang ni untuk apa ni? Sama kan?
Last submission.
Last submission 16 September. MILTC 2020. Okay? Okay, let us close our session today by reciting Tasbih Kafarat and Surah Al-As. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Amin. We appreciate you joining us today. Inshallah, see you next time. Thank you and have a nice weekend. Thank you, Dr. Sharifah and all the team RIG.